It's us. Only us. Watchmen by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. Now this is a big one. This is my personal Bible. Alan Moore has taught me so much about writing, about symbolism, about the human psyche. And this is just one of the best, if not the best, comic books ever made, ever written. And I like the art style. I have to say, some people don't like this almost golden age comic book arc, but I enjoy it. And I have to say, if I can find one page here, all right. I don't really care about these in between chapters, trivia dump, whatever you want to call them. Of course, the Rorschach one is interesting, but for the most part, I don't really care about them. But anyway, uh, the movie was pretty good. I have to say, I like the movie. Pretty nice, pretty nice. A new series came out not too long ago. I watched a couple of minutes and I said, "Fuck this shit, absolute garbage. Let's get the fuck out of here. Let's read this again. This is where it's at." Anyway, everybody knows about Watchmen, and uh, for there's a reason why it's one of the best novels. Okay, here it is said that it's a novel, and in a way it is, and there's a reason for that because in here, what we have is something colossal. Here we have something that hasn't been done before, ever since, in this way, in this what might you call it, in this elegant and visceral combination. The story, I'm not a fan of superheroes. I have never been a fan of superheroes. They're kind of lame to me, but and I think, these people who keep on pumping these fucking Avenger movies, they sort of understood that people are tired of superheroes, so we're all gonna make them dark. We're all gonna have to make them that they have problems, the psychological problems. All of them have darkness in them, and that's why superheroes still uh, have survived to this day in these big ass movies because they've all been made like they're psychos, all of them, right? And Alan Moore says, the fact that we're still dependent on superheroes to this day says that something's wrong with the collective, that there's a juvenile mentality that grown ass people still go and watch Superman and Batman and Flash, and I kind of agree with that. It's time to move on. Watchmen is great, not because it is about superheroes or people with super abilities or what have you. That does not interest me at all. Okay. What interests me beyond anything else is the magnificent writing that's going on here. The subtlety here and there that just catch you off guard sometimes. It's like, what? And I don't mind the art. The art is pretty good. Now, I won't go into the whole story. We've got heroes, masked crusaders. They are the second generation, and there's been a law passed. If you don't work for the government, you gotta take your mask off and stop being a vigilante. And of course, most of them do, except for your boy Rorschach and the comedian who works for the government, and Doctor Manhattan, who of course doesn't need a mask because he is the original Blue Balls man. But there's not enough praise for this. Everybody, aspiring writers, and everybody else should read this book because it is, without a doubt, one of the best. And like I said, it's not about the superheroes. It's not about the superpowers. There's more to this than all that. superhero, superpower nonsense. That's, you can shove that to the side. That's not what we're here for. Okay? There's some amazing things in here that you don't see that often. And I have to say, which is astounding to me, but I've read this like, whew, I've read this many times, and every time you read it, it's like you discover something new. Just one panel. There's a discovered treasure that you've never seen before, and just yes, this is why I read this, because there's always something. And it flows the way the panels are set in the, what is it, the nine grid, right? The way that it's drawn, the way the text mirror what's happening in the panel, and so on and so forth. And it's just the visuals sometimes are so they correspond so well with what's happening in the panel. It is breathtaking almost. And what's great about this as well is, at the first time I picked this up, I didn't really liked a lot of the characters. Of course, Rorschach will always be Jaboy. He will be the best. But of course, I didn't like, and I still don't like, Night Owl and the Silk Spectre. I think those two are a bit fillery. They're just there. But I also didn't like the comedian and Ozymandias and Dr. Manhattan. And you read this a couple times, and something happens where I actually kind of liked the comedian. I actually kind of liked Ozymandias and even Dr. Manhattan, because their stories, once you understand that these are different people with different lives that go through things on their own, and they experience so much, it's like, I like them. I like them. I understand now. Even though Ozymandias is my least favorite of the favorite characters, it's it's something else. And they all have pretty compelling backstories. Rorschach, the comedian, Ozymandias, Dr. Manhattan, they're just so, in a way, you kind of feel bad for them, even though they do some pretty horrible stuff. And I guess that's the point, because people are people in the end. They're not monsters, right? And there's some things that I have to say that I'm still astounded by it. The What happens exactly? What happens? This is a few complaints I have. Okay, so Ozymandias. This is the easy one. Okay, so Ozymandias. Okay, he doesn't have superpowers. He is a man that has trained his body and his mind to perfection, but he's still human, right? So by the end, uh, the Silk Spectre fires a gun at him, and he captures a bullet with his bare hand. Okay, with his bare hand. It doesn't pass through his hand. He captures it with his bare hand, and he is not a superhuman. I get it. He trained his body to perfection, but he's still flesh and blood. So how can he catch a fucking bullet just like that? That's one. That's the easy one. The number two complaint is the comedian. Okay, because throughout this story we get the understanding that the comedian is an absolutely amoral creature. He does not give a shit. He kills a woman pregnant with his child. He rapes another colleague. He does a lot of unspeakable things, and it is hinted that he works for the government as a sort of assassin. You know, the movie kind of, it shows, yeah, he's an assassin for the government right in the intro. But what I find a bit daunting is, okay, he's a completely amoral creature. right? He has absolutely no morals. He doesn't care about good or right. It's just about him and what he feels like doing. So he finds out what Ozymandias is planning to do, which is to kill millions to save billions by transporting a sort of squid creature right in New York. Like it's a sort of, like they say, the biggest practical joke ever. And the comedian, who is this completely amoral creature, he breaks down. He just can't take it. He is appalled. He is a wreck when he finds out because he cannot do anything about it. And my question is, why the fuck does he care? Why does he care? How can someone who is obviously almost a psychopath, if not a psychopath, why does he care? Why is he so affected by this? It doesn't make any sense to me. All right? Why is he crying? Why is he crying? He goes to one of his enemies and he cries on his bed, right? And of course, because he finds out what Ozymandias is doing, he's gonna get killed in the beginning of the book. That's another thing. And another complaint I have with another character. Okay? Dr. Manhattan. It's Jaboy. Again, it's Jaboy. Another great. I didn't like him in the beginning. Now I do. But he is, of course, he's not even amoral. He is on another plane of existence. Okay, he just does not feel anything towards mankind. Absolutely, I think he pictures them as annoying insects at best, right? So something happens, and he said, "You know what? Fuck people. I'm going to Mars. Screw you guys. I'm going home." So he goes to Mars, and Lori comes along, and it is revealed that she is the daughter of the comedian plus the original Silk Spectre, which tried to rape her, and then they got together because the original Silk Spectre, she's what is it? She's a reverse simp, maybe. So Doctor Manhattan, because he thinks that Lori's conception by these two people is almost an impossibility, a natural, a biological impossibility. Almost, it's like turning. I don't know what the exact analogy is. Like turning dirt to gold or something like that. It is so impossible, implausible, and it just happens. And he thinks, because this happened, because that horrible piece of shit, the comedian, had her with the original Silk Spectre, her mom, that means that human life, every human life is precious and unique and should be protected. And because of that, Dr. Manhattan starts caring about humanity. He starts caring about humanity's fate and so on and so forth, even though we get flashbacks that he just killed people like ain't no nothing. He was the war machine. He watched people die and did nothing. He was completely unfeeling. He had no reaction, no sentiment towards human beings, not even those that cared about him, that were in his life. And just because the comedian and Sil Spectre had Laurie, it's like turning dust into gold, allegedly. Now he feels compelled to care. And that came out of nowhere. I don't know. It just, to me, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't click. It doesn't connect. What's going on here? Right? There are some writing choices in here that Alan Moore does that I don't know. They are questionable because if he didn't pick those choices, there was no way you could get Manhattan to care. You couldn't get the comedian to show that he actually has a human side. There was no way because these people are, one's a psychopath and one is even beyond that, a god psychopath, right? And all of a sudden, they now care about people just because Ozymandias pulled the biggest practical joke, right? And I don't buy it. I don't buy it, you know. And of course, my favorite, Rorschach. What's there to say? he is the best, of course, and he has a pretty brutal end. But he is, of course, he is the best. He is the person that sees everything that is suspicious, that thinks for himself, and of course, he is obsessed with his own little thing. He, of course, like the rest, doesn't really care about humanity. He cares about justice. He cares about the black and white mentality. He does not care about people. He just wants to solve the thing that obsesses him. And even in the end, he does not care that uh, millions of people have been killed per se. He just wants the truth to come out. He doesn't care about millions of people being killed to save billions. He just wants there to be truth. That's all there is. There has to be truth. It doesn't matter how many people get killed. And then, of course, you got Ozymandias, which I have to say, out of all of the characters that I like, he is the least that I like, just because he's a curveball. Really you don't really kind of connect with him like the rest of the people. He was orphaned. His parents were rich. He had money. He gave it all away. He went to India. He did a lot of drugs. He became rich again, and then he became a vigilante. And he saw he was almost influenced by the comedian, which opened his eyes. No matter what we do, no matter how much crime we stop, no matter how many bad guys we put in jail, it's not gonna put a dent into crime. We can't save people. No matter what we do, nothing will change, right? And he leaves with you're the smartest man, Ozymandias, but you're still the smartest man on the cinder. And the cinder being mankind, which is a bomb that's about to explode, right? So he decides that extreme measures have to be taken, and yeah, he succeeds at the end, right? But at what cost? Because of course he is all alone, of course, by the end, and he doubts himself, and he asks Dr. Manhattan, is it over? Did I did it? Is it the end? And he responds with, nothing really ends. Nothing really ends. And yeah, and of course we have Rorschach's journal at the end, which you know might get picked up and published, and it might ruin Ozymandias his plan to create a new world. But of course, the new world is already in motion by the end of this, and some of the vigilantes that have survived this, they're in hiding now. You know, and there's so much else to say about this. This book is eclectic in its presentation, in its diversity of subject matter, in its the way every scene is viewed from a different angle, from a different perspective. There's no nothing goes stale, nothing is stagnating. There's always something else to look at from a different angle, from a different perspective. There are many ideologies that collide here, that some of them they don't really care about nothing. Some people want to affect mankind's destiny because of course they realize that mankind, if mankind continues on the same path, it'll lead to complete and total destruction, annihilation, etc. And maybe Ozymandias prevented that, but who knows? Maybe that, because he did that, it would lead to other problems. you know Maybe actually the same problem but in a different package. Okay, history repeats itself, but it isn't completely identical. It comes in a different package. And that's what the TV show tried to do, and it failed miserably, of course, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the book. The book is one of the best, and everybody should read it because of the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful story. Amazing characters throughout. It is, without a doubt, essential, not only for, your ordinary reader, but from a writing perspective, this is a treasure trove of knowledge because Alan Moore manages to pack so much, and I mean so much, into this not so thick book. All right, it is incredible what he can do here, and I've watched some documentaries, and he wrote a lot. Imagine having one page of this comic followed by who knows how many pages of text written by Alan Moore. So every page you have here in the book, it was created from a lot of pages with only text. All right, so the detail, the investment was there. This is incredible advice, incredible wisdom for every aspiring writer. This book. And this book starts out, let me just say, this book starts out like there are some crazy scenes here. Like the beginning, how it starts. It's like Rorschach's journal entries or monologues or whatever you call them, followed by the panels, are just out of this world. They are perfect. They are perfect. How his monologues, I have to say, they are a treat. They captivate me. He is my favorite character just because of his ideology, of his mentality, how his brain works, how he views the world and people. And he is the most quotable out of this book. He is. He is my favorite because I identify with him. He has his contradictions or controversies here. He is not a perfect person. He is not our hero. He's not even an anti-hero. He is just Rorschach. And Rorschach does what Rorschach does best. Okay? And that's about it. Watchmen, my personal Bible. Read it and read it again because you will never tire of this masterpiece.